Season 2 of Netflix Shera is due to start on April 26th of 2019. I wasn't a big fan of season 1 and I really wanted to like season 1. The reason why I wanted to like season 1, and you can see this going back to my original videos that I made on Shera, was I was excited that they were actually making a new show about Shera because, frankly, I thought that they were never going to make another Shera show again. There were times previously in which there were plans to reintroduce Shera, but it always seemed like those plans fell through. For example, on the 2002 to 2004 version of He-Man, in the third season, there were a lot of rumors that Shera was going to be in it, but the show ended up getting canceled after its second season. A lot of the fans of the new show, at least on social media, have been shipping two of its characters, Catra and Adora. Personally, I don't ship these two characters, and I'll explain why in a little bit. At any rate, I really wanted to like Netflix Shera, and if you look at my videos made before Netflix Shera came out, I actually did my best to try to keep an open mind about this show, even when there were a lot of people that were very skeptical about this show, saying that it probably wasn't going to be very good. I wanted to wait until it actually came out, but I gotta say, I was quite disappointed. For one thing, I don't like the way Shera is so much less powerful. Now, in my previous video on Shera, I talked about how much less powerful Shera is now, and some of the people in the comments section did bring up the fact that I was sort of arguing that the old Shera was something of a Mary Sue and the new Shera is not. And they do sort of have a point, but this is the point that I'm trying to make. I liked it when Shera was awesome. And in the original, Shera was this awesome, very dominant character. In the new one, Shera is this whiny, immature, and not very powerful character that doesn't really seem to be that interested in the Great Rebellion, and she spends a lot of time doing things like getting into pillow fights and going to prom, and it's just very hard to take her very seriously. She's also just a lot less mature, and frankly, I would rather have Shera be a little bit more of a Mary Sue than for her to be this whiny, immature, annoying girl that Netflix Shera has made her out to be. Frankly, I don't agree with the people who claim that the character development is much better on Netflix Shera than it was on the original Shera. Frankly, the only character that is really that well developed is Catra. The other characters really aren't that well developed. I don't really think that making Adora slash Shera an immature, whiny girl is really good character development. Now, when it comes to Catra and Adora, it is true that in this new version, it shows that Catra and Adora were childhood friends, but they are now on opposite sides of a war. And in the original, Shera was smart enough, clever enough, and mature enough that she would never have gotten involved in a relationship with Catra, even if she was in love with Catra. And the reason for that is, on the original, Shera would put the needs of the Great Rebellion before her own selfish personal needs. And even if she was totally in love with Catra and wanted to marry Catra, she would not do it because Catra is on the side of the evil horde. Now, I realize that it is possible that maybe Catra will change sides, but Catra is not someone to be trusted, even if she changes sides. And on the original, Shera would have been smart enough and wise enough to realize that she can't trust Catra and she can't be in a relationship with Catra even if she wanted to be. She can't go dating people in the horde. But Netflix Shera is very different. Netflix Shera is much more selfish. Netflix Shera is much less intelligent, and Netflix Shera just might be dumb enough to actually allow herself to be involved in a relationship with Catra. Although I hope that Netflix Shera isn't that dumb, but unfortunately, I'm not so sure that Netflix Shera isn't that dumb. I will say this. I don't really think that season 2 of Netflix Shera is going to disappoint me because my expectations of it for now are very low. So it would be pretty hard for it to disappoint me, although who knows, it might turn out to disappoint me, and maybe I will be pleasantly surprised. Who knows? I will say this, it doesn't look like season 2 of Netflix Shera is really season 2. It looks like it's just going to be episodes that were originally made for season 1 that were divided into 2 separate seasons. Part of the reason for this is the showrunner, Noelle Stevenson, made a comment in one of the promo videos about season 1, episode 14. Well, there is no season 1, episode 14. Season 1 had 13 episodes. And Netflix has actually divided TV shows into more than one season before that were really intended to be one season. So it's quite possible that they're doing that with Shera as well. Shout out to the YouTube channel Clownfish TV. They have made some of the most insightful videos on Netflix Shera, and they, from before Netflix Shera came out, were quite critical of this show. Now, I personally waited until after Netflix Shera actually came out because I wanted to give it a fair shake. And these two, they're a married couple, in particular, Geeky Sparkles. They were actually like me. They were pretty excited when they found out that they were going to make a reboot of She-Ra because, well, it seemed like the reboots of She-Ra never really happened until this one. But then, when they found out who the showrunner was, Noelle Stevenson, they quickly decided that this show was not going to be very good. Now, I personally had never heard of Noelle Stevenson before this show came out, but they had, and they also are quite knowledgeable about She-Ra, both the original show and Netflix She-Ra. So I do think that they have made some of the best videos on Netflix She-Ra on YouTube. One thing that Clownfish TV have pointed out is that Netflix She-Ra seems to be a show pretty much for Tumblr by Tumblr. And they're not convinced, and neither am I, that this show is particularly popular for its target demographic, which is young kids. It seems to be primarily popular with young adults who think that they know what kids want and are primarily on, social media sites like Twitter and Tumblr. But these people, they make up a relatively small minority, and I'm not really sure if there's enough of them to really make Netflix She-Ra a successful show. We don't really know how many views Netflix She-Ra gets because Netflix doesn't make those kinds of numbers public. But it doesn't really surprise me that much if they greenlit season 2, if it is true that season 2 is primarily or entirely episodes that were already created, because after all, if they already paid for these episodes, then they might as well air them. But I'm not so sure that there's going to be too many more seasons of Netflix She-Ra after season 2, but who knows. One thing that Clownfish TV have pointed out is that fans on Tumblr do sometimes get pretty upset when shows don't go along with the ships that the fans really seem to like, and for that reason, Netflix She-Ra might just go along with making Catra and Adora a couple, even though it would be a big mistake, because as I said earlier, a really good leader, and OG She-Ra was actually a really good leader, would have put the interests of the Great Rebellion ahead of her own interests, and getting involved in a relationship with Catra is pretty much the opposite of that. But considering how weak and selfish Netflix She-Ra seems to be, who knows, they might end up making that ship a reality. But it wouldn't really be a good thing. And maybe I'm in the minority, but I'm sorry. I just don't ship Catra and Adora. Another channel that has made a lot of good videos on Netflix She-Ra is MJ Tanner, a channel owned by identical twins. And they've done a lot of videos in which they go through each episode of Netflix She-Ra, and they give the show what I consider very good constructive criticism. And frankly, I wish that the people who made Netflix She-Ra would watch their videos because I think they could actually learn something from taking a lot of the advice that the Tanner twins provide. They pointed out in their review of episode 8 that for all this talk about Catradora on social media, what's interesting is after Adora quits the Horde in Netflix She-Ra, she doesn't really even talk about Catra or seem to think about her that much until episode 8. So it doesn't really seem that clear that Adora is really all that interested in Catra anyway. But who knows how they'll try to spin it in the future. So if you like this video, go ahead and give it a like. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel, click the bell icon for notifications, and together we shall take over the world. Also, feel free to check out my brand new awesome merch store. Link is in the description. I'm also Zorkbid123 on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitch.